All right, to this interview now. The former Western Cape top cop, Jeremy Vearey, is slamming the SAPS for firing him. He was fired after a disciplinary hearing for allegedly criticizing National Police Commissioner Kehla Sithole on Facebook. He joins us live now from our Cape Town studios for his take of what happened in this particular process. I don't know, do I still call you Lieutenant General Vearey or do I call you Mr. Vearey? Mr. Vearey, good morning. Thank you for joining me. So there was this process. It's called an expeditious process, and I suppose that sets it apart from a normal disciplinary process. It came to the conclusion that your posts on Facebook in particular brought the SAPS into disrepute. Your reaction to that?
Okay, firstly, I deny that I ever brought anyone into disrepute. And secondly, I heard earlier a reference to unsavory language. Let me firstly say here, my comments were in English, for which I was charged. One was time longer than rope, and a few others. And the important one, which they misrepresented in mistranslation, was in Afrikaans. And that was moerele. And let me state unequivocally here that moerele is a normal idiomatic expression in my mother tongue, Afrikaans. And in my mother tongue, it is not derogatory. And that anybody who sees this as unsavory, or, for that matter, derogatory, is denigrating my mother tongue, and I take serious exception to that. But coming to the incident, this was precisely what was wrong. So, what I faced was a hearing that was started as a result of a senior officer in crime intelligence in this province, a major general, taking a post of mine, which was a byline called moerele, encouraging General Jacobs, whom I was representing at the time, to be victorious in and beat those forces arraigned against him in a labor matter with the SAPS. So that's the first thing.
Before you proceed, Mr. Vearey,
yes,
just pause on that. I see that you're using the word, that you've been saying, because I don't use the word and I don't know its origins and what its meaning is, I do know that other people who've used it in the context in public got into trouble. We'll remember when Fikile Mbalula was the sports minister, he got into a bit of trouble for using that word in public, and it was deemed as derogatory. But nevertheless, that's not the point I want to raise with you. The point I want to raise with you is that you're not quoting the full Facebook post that you made, with caution as well that we are on family TV, and therefore I would prefer that you don't quote the other word, the other two words that you used in those posts, which I think not many people would debate what the meaning of that is.
Can I just say firstly, I am proud of my Afrikaans language, and I will not be subjected to the distasteful exercises and oppression of that language that I suffered under Afrikaners, and by any form of ethno-nationalism or tribalism such as the one I faced in the police. I want to clarify quickly about this particular issue. The hearing that I faced is not a normal disciplinary hearing. It was what they call an expeditious process. And in that process, the chairperson or designated official made it clear in writing by her own words that this is not a normal disciplinary hearing. One, in paragraph 17 and paragraph 18 of her writ, that there will be no evidence to be led. In other words, I will not be able to cross-examine anybody who put in a statement about me. The third thing was that it was clearly stated there will be no points eliminae In other words, I will not be able to question the arbitrary due process that brought me into that expeditious process. And finally, to much of my disgust, in writing, it was clearly stated to me, they will have no impartial chairperson to examine whatever is disputed. In other words, a clear statement from General Nshinga in writing saying that she is a partial chairperson. So this is a kangaroo court, let me tell me, not a normal disciplinary process, and I want to clarify that.
Yeah.
So that's what brought out that. But I want to get to what I was saying. What I was saying in the multiple posts that I put out there was part of exercising my right to freedom of expression after years of abuse in the police. And it's not only abuse I suffered. And I want you to pay attention, very interestingly, to the people who suffered this abuse. It started with General Andre Lincoln, who was framed, and then it was overthrown, and is now subsequently being the subject, also they attempted, of an expeditious process. It was followed by General Zelda Holzman, who was similarly hounded out of the police and ultimately, even beyond that, the civil service. It continued with Anwar Dramat. It then harassed the same people and the same type of ethno-nationalist, tribalist conduct affected General Gary Cruiser, and finally myself, incessantly over the past few years.
What is the pattern that you are pointing
now,
to?
I am not...
what is the pattern that you are pointing to in the cases of the people that you mentioned?
Yes, it's cases, the pattern I'm pointing to, this consistent hounding and harassment until they leave of Camisa Africans, which is the name I choose for what was previously derogatorily called colored. And actions being taken over these years against us who come from a particular political background also. We come from Umkhonto we Sizwe in the African National Congress. And we find ourselves in the South African police facing ethno-nationalist tribalism in the conduct against us. In this particular matter of mine, even more disturbing, that my mother tongue, Afrikaans, could be reduced in the idiomatic expression Murala I used as derogatory and as disgusting, while not even the official Afrikaans dictionary, the handleide antwoordeboek vir die Afrikaanse taal, recognizes it as derogatory. So in whose mind is it derogatory?
Yeah. Look, I will not challenge you on that right now because, as I said, Mr. Vearey, I will not challenge you on that right now because all I know about the content of the word mhele that you used there is that previously I've seen people getting into trouble for using it. But I still maintain that in your quotation of that Facebook post that you made while you were representing Major General Jacobs, this is cited to have happened on the 25th of February. You didn't only use that M word, but you actually used the F word. So after saying mhele, you said F them.
That is a blatant lie.
Talk to the F them. You didn't write that.
I'll talk to the F word.
Yes.
As I told you, a man from crime intelligence, a major general, took my post and then he did a Facebook translation and he translated into F hulle.
I see.
Or F them.
So you only wrote
and he
M
took
hulle,
that,
not
listen,
F them.
let me finish.
Yes.
He circulated that to head office, to his head office, to the person of General Feroz Khan, who then further spread it in that environment and generated a response that it was derogatory.
I see.
It was a dishonest exercise and a manipulation of a Facebook. In the very next day, I took that very screen grab of the post of Feroz Khan and the Major General from the Western Cape, let's just say who he is, Mzwadile Tio. I took that manipulated post and I circulated it to us with the question, sinister manipulation or shenanigans, if I recall the right word, or deliberate misrepresentation. So this was a sabotage of a post that I did by people inside the SAPS.
So the long and short
was
of it,
not my words.
Yeah, you didn't use
my
the
words
word
was not that.
Okay.
I did not use it.
So in totality, though, the posts as they are outlined in the record of this expeditious process, Mr. Vearey, do they, in your view, inspire confidence in General Kehla Sithole, or do they detract from that confidence in General Kehla Sithole? Let me give you an example. On the 16th of January, you are said to have posted, quote, "The age of blacker-than-thou police politics, or the pot othering the kettle bronze," is the quote that comes from there. There's actually a number of those where you are said to have used the picture of General Kehla Sithole with a caption that you would then add. For instance, it's said that on the 24th of January, you had the caption and the picture of General Sithole, and the caption was, quote unquote, "The year of deceiving dangerously." In its totality, including that Mhele that you say you posted on Facebook, was it meant to inspire confidence in your boss, General Kehla Sithole, or to detract from the confidence that he enjoys?
I think the first thing is, what you're not seeing clearly, is that all I added was a byline above an already article that was there in various news online articles, where that included the photos of the National Commissioner and General Jacobs, and at one stage the Minister. That single idiomatic expression was my byline. I did not include their photos. I did not say that I 100% agree with the content, but I expressed my opinion in relation to its content. And when I talk about the othering the kettle bronze, I was speaking precisely about what has been a pattern of ethno-nationalist abuse of very senior Camisa African police officers, generals, consistently over these years. Not because of our work, not because of what we did, because our records stand above criticism, I think, in terms of the results it achieved in the police. So it was not even for that. Okay, but we have been consistently attacked in this way. So with everything I said as a byline, I admit it. But I stated clearly in that hearing, I never brought the organization in disrepute. I even gave them a lecture with case laws, which they were not aware of what in law is meant by disrepute.
Sure.
And the case law stating there must be an element of turpitude. And turpitude is meant in our law, when it comes to disrepute, to mean morally degenerative.
Sure.
It's quite a negative form of conduct. Now, if my words as bylines is remotely seen in that particular way, then we have a serious challenge with lexical meanings and actual meanings of words.
Sure. And so now,
and
from what I'm picking up,
misrepresentation of what people say.
From what I'm picking up, your biggest gripe is that this was the expeditious process as opposed to a normal disciplinary process that would have allowed you to make some of the contentions and challenge some of the averments that were made against you as you are doing today. What are you planning on doing about it all?
Okay. My union, Pop Crew, has lodged an application for a matter to be heard before the triple SPC, and that is a process independent, because in this particular matter, if I brought the National Commissioner, according to him, allegedly into disrepute, he can't be the person who gives the sanction and appoints the person who does the hearing and appoints the prosecutor, as he did in this particular matter in the person of General Johan Schippers. An Afrikaner man, officer, whom I asked when he told me the first day, give me the opportunity when you finish to explain, because you do not understand my language, who promised to do so but did not do so ultimately. So I think what is important here is the triple SPC process will test the facts. The triple SPC process will do the just thing of allowing evidence to be led, of allowing witnesses possibly to be cross-examined, and to test in and not be loaded by the judge, jury, executioner in one person.
In fairness, you were quite senior in the SAPS, and there's no way, I believe, that you were not familiar with the regulations around discipline, from where this expeditious process, as opposed to a normal disciplinary process, was drawn from. And in terms of that expeditious process, the person who heads it up assumes the position of the employer. So, I mean, you've known about this all along. As you took part in it, you knew that the person who was leading it assumed the position of the employer, that is General Ketlasitole.
The person who did this process misapplied. I know that expeditious process, and I know it quite well. They misapplied that process through using a document called Disciplinary Expeditious Process Guidelines. And that guideline document was never assented to at the triple SPC level by our trade unions in the police. The only thing that was assented to and gazetted was the regulations, not the misapplied guidelines that talks about a meeting. In the regulations, there is no meeting. In the regulations, even when reference is made to the expeditious process, it is used to fast-track things in the case where we arrest rapists to our police officers and direct criminal action that require a rapid solution. But even there, the process is fairer than the one I faced. And in this case, the script they work from is not an official script, the disciplinary guidelines, but an arbitrary document not assented to by the trade unions in the South African Police Service.
Lastly, Mr. Vearey, let me ask you to expand a bit more on this contention that you make about ethno-nationalism that you say is targeted at Camisa Africans, known as colored South Africans. How deep does it go? And also draw the links then to the politics of it all. You are a former member of Umkhonto weSizwe yourself, and you are saying that there are links there between this ethno-nationalism and the background of some of the people who have found themselves on the receiving end of some of these processes over the years. Where does it all come from, and what is the intention, and who's behind it all?
Okay, let's start with, I think it's pretty obvious in the names that I read and the consistent type of harassment of the generals throughout the years, and the fact that we win every time when tested outside of the police. It's pretty evident from who we are, who are targeted. But the second thing I want to say, I was the one who, when the National Commissioner came to brief us down, the current National Commissioner, General Sitoli, with his Simonere, We Are One program, I was the one to even back then raise, we are dealing with a problem of tribalism in this organization. We're dealing with the fact that if we go to certain parts of the countries, there's a preference for a certain demographic. We are a national police service. We are not a Bantustan confederacy in this country. The fact, if I want to go and work in Gorankua and be a general there or wherever I want to work, it reflects the identity of this country, South Africa. The same applies to the Cape. Okay, so that's the first, I think, important thing. And in the past, and there's a Deputy National Commissioner who's still sitting, whom I want to just quote what he told me once when General Jacobs and I applied for posts and into the where he was appointed. Now he applied for the crime intelligence post. That general told me simply, I asked him, is this a color thing? He says, sorry, but we can't have two coloreds at head office. General Jacobs can also testify to that, and I'm sure that general is well aware that in a climate in the police where we have all kinds of shenanigans against us, we make very sure that we keep proper record of whatever is said, whenever it is said, because we know what underlies it. So I'm not talking out of my head theoretically. I was told this.
Is this partly ANC politics? Is this partly ANC politics and factions contaminating the SAPS ranks, given your background as well, that is always highlighted?
Look, me being targeted for my background, is a fait accompli. It probably comes with the territory. But the tendency of ethno-nationalism and the type of things I've heard and seen, and the general who told General Jacobs and me about this two coloreds thing, can't have two, that comes from our background. So it's not as simple as what I call blacker than thou politics of old. Okay? It seems to be permeating politics in the police, no matter what our historical background.
All right.
And there are good colleagues in the police.
Yeah, Mr. Jeremy Vearey.
Who do not. This is a minority, and a bureaucratic minority who act arbitrarily according to an agenda that they must reveal themselves. It's just ironic that a lot of the corruption allegations that we have in the police, from 1.6 billion being given verbal authority for on a PPE, to challenging IPIT, to vanity litigation, that taxpayers' monies are being wasted in this country to protect individual reputations constantly.
Yeah.
That, because of that is what has become the feature of politics at national management level.
All right, Jeremy Vearey, thank you so much for your time. And my apologies if I got your rank confused from time to time. The rank you were at the point of you being discharged from the SAPS, my understanding is that was Major General, not Lieutenant General. No offense was intended there. And also there I did speak about General Jacobs and referred to him as Major General. Actually, I'm told it's actually Lieutenant General. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. Clearly a story that we will need to follow through here on ENCA.